students in academic writing advanced English. As we are working on revising Major Essay 2, your rhetorical analysis essays, I'm getting a lot of the same questions about what the task actually requires. So I am recording this video so that you have a little bit of a reference and you can come back to this video and follow up as we continue talking to each other in our one-on-one conferences. So the goal of rhetorical analysis is to identify the particular choices that an author or a creative team is making in order to communicate their message in a particular work. So all those words I just used are really general because all of you are writing about different kinds of sources. You're writing about podcast episodes, about feature films, about animation, about a painting, about articles, about books. And so the kinds of rhetorical choices in each of those sources is a little bit different. For films, they include things like light, music, sound. That's also true for animation. Also things like color. Some of those things are also included in kind of visual art like paintings or drawings. In our scholarly stuff, rhetorical choices include things like the kind of evidence that a source is using. Are they using statistics? Are they using emotional stories? Are they using recent sources or old sources? Also, things like word choice, the kind of tone or style that text-based source uses is another rhetorical choice. But whatever you identify as the rhetorical choices that you want to focus on in your analysis of the source you're looking at, what you need to do in the paper is to name them overtly in clear sentences, right? They need to be both in your introduction, in your thesis statement, where you say this source successfully or unsuccessfully communicates its message using whatever techniques, right? You need to list them succinctly in your thesis statement in the introduction of your essay. And then in your analysis paragraphs, where you are actually engaged in the work of this task, you need to, at the beginning of each paragraph, identify what is the rhetorical choice that's under analysis in that paragraph, right? So a paragraph about color, a paragraph about sound, a paragraph about the use of statistics as evidence, a paragraph about the use of emotional stories to evoke emotion in the reader. So your analysis paragraphs need to actually identify the rhetorical choice that's under analysis in the first sentence or two. And then the evidence that's in that paragraph needs to be directly connected to the rhetorical choice that you identified in the first sentence. So you identify the rhetorical choice under analysis, and then you show us what that looks like in the source. This might include something like a direct quote from the source. It might include a description of an element of a visual source. If you're thinking about a painting or a film and you want to talk about something we see on the screen, you might do a kind of paraphrase that is your description of what you see. And then you need to connect that in the end of your analysis paragraph. You need to connect that to the overall question of the communication of the source's message. So here's a rhetorical choice that the creative team has made. Here's what it looks like in the text. And then here is how this either contributes to communicating the message or fails to communicate the message. A key part of rhetorical analysis that separates it from narrative analysis or character analysis is this focus on how do each of these choices contribute to the communication of the message that we've identified the source is trying to convey. Some other things to think about as you are doing final revisions on these drafts is that it's not enough to just put ideas next to each other. In Anglophone academic writing, the burden of connecting one idea to another idea, the burden for creating the logical flow of ideas is with you, the writer. That's a little bit different from the expectations in Russophone academic writing, where there's a little bit more of a burden on the reader to supply some of that logical connection. But in this class, we're working on Anglophone academic writing. And so you need to be making the connections from one idea to the next. When I read your drafts, I believe that you put things next to each other because you see them as being connected. You put things next to each other because in your head, it makes sense to put this thing next to this thing. But I'm not in your head. And so those connections that you have up here need to make it onto the page. They need to be overt and stated in words. So it's not enough to just put ideas next to each other or to identify a rhetorical choice and then put the quote or the paraphrase from your source in the paragraph and then move on. You have to actually use words and sentences to connect the ideas with each other and to highlight what you want your reader to see, right? To show your reader the ideas that you are seeing as you look at the source you're analyzing. So to recap the main goal of the source, of the task, in rhetorical analysis, you identify a choice or a set of choices that the creative team has made in producing the thing that you are analyzing. Then you show examples of what those choices look like in the source text. And then finally, you evaluate how those choices contribute to communicating the overall message of the text. All right, I look forward to seeing more of you in one-on-one conferences this week, and I definitely look forward to seeing your final versions of these papers.